have lashed out at a man who they hated and despised so much. And whether or not you agree with this man in particular, he was on the radio for many, many years, pretty much the voice of talk radio. Somebody that was the voice of truth and optimism and all of that, right? But yet, everybody that disagreed with him comes out of the woodwork to find fault in everything that he said, and calling him every name under the book now. And some people are just looking at everything right now and saying, well, grateful. And maybe we can move on with, it's kind of like the same people. It's pretty much the same people, if you think about it. The same people that were happy, same kind of people, I should say, were happy when Biden won, or with asterisk, by the way, one in quotes. But anyway, I'm going to share a word sometime on that, and the word that God gave me on everything. But this has been strong in me for a minute now, this week. And it's this, It's like, what do you want said of you in that moment? There's a lot of people out there that always are quick to say something about a man that's dead. They're quick to cut him up and say he was this, he was that, blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, at the core of who he was, he wasn't perfect by any means. Always said, talent unknown from God. He was always giving credit. He knew that everything that he had came from God. It wasn't like a lot of people I know probably have thrown that term around, or that saying around, but to them it doesn't mean anything. But to him, it meant everything. He knew he wasn't there in that position on his own merit. He did it only because of God allowed him to do it for so many years. And he's like, this guy is probably about the classic success story. Think about how many times this guy had been married, how many times he had tried to, he's like, his story of success is inspiring. I get a lot of inspiration on that because he didn't quit. He kept on doing what he felt he had been called to do, what he had been commissioned to do in talk radio. And think about all the bosses out there who told him, you're not good enough. You're not talk show material. You're this. You're not that. And they basically dismissed him. And then, of course, as things would go, he would become the icon of talk radio. I mean, you wouldn't have talk radio if it weren't for him today, And he was like, somebody said the Elvis of talk radio. That's pretty strong word, but I think it's a lot of truth to that, So anyway, imagine someday, think about this for a sec. I know this is deep. You're being judged by everything you said. Imagine for a second even further that you having to have that hanging over your head forever. That's sober. I mean, I don't know what that's no words for that one. No filter needed, And God has to sit there and has to judge and stand in that place of saying, look, why didn't you accept everything I did? Why didn't you do it? But yet you sat there in your pride and ignorance. You sat there in your stupidity and your foolishness of whatever. And you said, not now. You know, it's like in the Bible, it says today's the day of salvation, not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. You know, and because we don't know when we're going to pass from this life on to the next. We have no idea. But you know, here's the thing. Obviously, that's between you and the Lord. You know, you and God. You know, I mean, that's the one thing I would say more than anything. It's who do you know? It's all in who you know in that hour. And that's going to save you. And it's not a matter of being famous, because whether it's the rich and famous or it's the guy in Africa or wherever, right? We're all going to have to stand before him one day and say, and have to answer that question. Answer those questions. You know, and there's two things that are to keep in mind. You know, it's like you know, you will either be judged based on Ten Commandments, or you're based on a different, or on something else. There's no third option there. In that moment, it's either you have Christ or you don't. Either you know God or you don't know God. And I know that's a sobering message to have. But you know, here's the thing. And that's what it comes down to. See, there's a lot of people out there that think, oh, I got my own way. They think that there's like 100 million ways to get there. Christ himself said it best. In so many words, there's only me. You can't come through me through another man. I'm the only one that rose again. All those other gods didn't. They're all moral. They didn't raise up. They didn't come back to life. They stayed down. You know. So you can have your disagreements, you can have it all, but is it really worth having to explain that to God for a second. Explain to him everything you said, because you imagine for a second if he pulled back everything that you did and said, tell me about that time you said such and such about Rush Limbaugh. Tell me all about that. Or maybe it's something different. You're like, whoa. You know, by all accounts, this would be not a hung jury by any means. Guilty as charged, you know. And that word that he gave me was so on point. I don't know how else to say it, you know. And it was basically, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. You know, back in his day, he was crucified, nailed to a tree. For you and for me. So, that's where it just gets real right there, you know. And see, somebody said, I know Rod Parsons said this years ago, forgot it. Some people reminded me of on another video that the difference between heaven and hell is 18 inches. The difference is between your head and your heart. And in that moment, the only thing that matters, the only thing that's going to matter, is where you and him are. So, I don't know. It's a message. You know, at the end of the day, what do you want said of you? And I think that's the message of the hour, if you ask me. You know, and there's a lot of people out there that will have their own opinion about everything else, everybody else. But yet, who do you say that I am? And think about the many people in Jesus' day when they didn't believe him. They doubted him, they questioned him, they did all the stuff, pretty much, and probably more, than what they did to a man that died this week. Lashing out at him, pretty much, at that time, obviously, heck, in those days, obviously they crucified people that were criminals, right? We know that from the scripture. We know that from the word, And that's pretty brutal. People that broke laws got nailed to a tree and had to die a brutal death, And the other thing that word they gave me was this. In a criminal trial, murder trial, right? You want justice. You want justice to be had, right? For what has transpired, right? Of course you do. Who doesn't? But the Son of Man was the blameless one. He didn't commit any crime. But he's like, you know what? I'll take it. I'll do it. I'll do it because you, me, us. And he did it because of his creation. He did it because it was the only thing that he could do. To bridge the gap between God and man. So anyway. At the end of the day, it's mercy. It's grace. So, yeah, it's good. I think in that regard, he added some things there. I'm okay, But yeah, it's good. So, anyway, wowzers. Yes. Times. Yeah. That's the truth. That's the truth right there. It doesn't get any better than that. We're sitting here when you're sitting there trying to basically come up with every reason God himself is like, look, this is the deal, you know. So that's where it's at, you know. Um, that's where truth is. I think a lot of people struggle with, oh yeah, I should have done this. Do it. I know that God, to me, is taking me up on a higher level, to a deeper level, and that's good. I'm extremely grateful for that. And yeah, that's a message that's been rolling around my heart for a minute now. You know, so that's it. That's really it. You know, it's not a matter of, hey, it's a matter of, what about you? You know, sorry, I'm speechless at this point. But you know, it's all good. Peace out.